Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of Business and Financial Raw Talk. I am the host for this evening, LaWanna Bradford, with the Bradford Group, as well as principal of the Bradford Group Consulting. And if you know anything about me, you know I love all things business and finance. But the one thing that I love about this particular platform, it is called Business and Financial Raw Talk, a no-holds-barred forum for leaders and innovators. So I get the opportunity to sit with amazing minds in the business, financial arena, and all other walks of life to help us really assess and challenge ourselves when it comes to amplifying our business game and our financial game. And so much begins with the mindset. I'm finding the conversations keep going back to that. And that's back to the basics. It's understanding our essence, understanding our purpose, understanding our why. And it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I know you all are saying, LaWanna, are you ever going to get off that mental health awareness platform? And the answer is no. Why? Because as comfortable as we are talking about physical health, we should be equally comfortable talking about mental health. It matters, and it's important that we begin to change the narrative. And I hope that today's conversation will help to expand what mental health really means to you in your workplace, in your business, in your life, understanding what some of those triggers could be, that you may even be in a state of mental health compromise, but you don't know it because you're performing at that all-time high. You are that rock star. You're that person that everyone is trying to model themselves after and wondering, how do you have so much time in the day to accomplish all that you do? Or you're getting the questions, do you ever get any sleep at night? I know I get that all the time. And trust me, I get 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night, but it's all about balance and it's all about prioritization. But before we go into this further, and I bring my special guest on, I want to pause and give a salute to our sponsor, Conversations Media Group.
Good Friday, everyone. Your real worth isn't defined by your net worth. What makes you valuable is how you use what you have been given. All of us have gifts. Make sure you're making the most of yours. Have an amazing Friday.
It is now the bottom of the hour. I'm excited to welcome Nancy Matthews to our program today. Nancy is an author of a book. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it in the carousel for you guys. There it is, The One Philosophy. I want to talk to Nancy not only about the re-release of the book, but also what it's been like for her to share the message with all of you guys. Nancy, great to have you on with us.
Hello, hello, hello. So happy to be here.
Well, we are back with my amazing guest, Shari Alyse. How's it going?
So well. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for saying yes. I know you've been busy. You've been traveling. You've been on TED Talk stages. You're just The rock star.
Thank you. All I need now is my mic, a bigger mic, so maybe some mohawk, and I'll really fit that description. But I'm super grateful to be here today and having this conversation with you.
Well, to tell the audience a little bit about you, beyond being an amazing speaker, a teacher, an influencer, you led your own wellness business. You were leading wellness leaders, over 3,500. And you suddenly realize I'm doing all of this work, but something's a little bit awry. So but before we go into that awareness, I'd like you to dig a little bit deep for us and tell us your story as to why this wellness approach for you and for your business outreach is so important.
Ooh, well, wellness really, if we don't have that, we don't really have anything. And I know that we hear that and we say that and we might even believe it, but so many of us, including myself, can get caught up in the toxic hustle culture. Succeed, go after, don't give up, and all of that is beautiful, but there is a balance with, like there is with anything. And so it's really important that this message gets out about taking care of ourselves emotionally, physically, and mentally. So this is a super important conversation, and wellness is everything.
The one thing I was thinking about in preparing for this is when we're looking at going into the workplace or even just managing our own business, as we start to experience successes, right? Or perhaps we have those goals and we're striving for that particular objective in our lives. Once we reach it, we start to raise the bar just a little bit more, a little bit more. We become self-critical, right? Oh, I could have done it better, even though it was excellent and everyone's applauding you. It's like, yeah, but. And so we start to feel this pressure and anxiety, but very often it's self-imposed. Did you ever experience anything like that?
Yeah, all the time. And to be totally honest, I still experience it, but which I'll talk about. But the difference is now is that I have the awareness around it, because it's not something, when you're surrounded by it and when you come from a background, which a lot of us have, of trauma, any sort of trauma, we have certain trauma responses and emotional responses, coping, triggers, anything that can happen. So it is something that I know that I face and deal with. So I've learned how to manage it. And I don't think that I'm alone in that. Actually, I know that I'm not alone in that. But it's something, like I said, that I'm aware of. So now I know how to manage it better.
And I love that. And like with our topic, it's business excellence. And right now in this ever-growing competitive market that we're in, we are striving to just be the one that people choose, the one that stands out. And by putting that pressure on ourselves instead of just allowing, and I know people are thinking, LaWanna, this sounds a little strange, but honestly, if you allow yourself to be in a seat of being with your business, it takes on a totally different feeling. When you're okay with, the market's not doing well. I'm in the mortgage industry, Shari. It's like,
right.
Hello, look what's happening. So I can run amok like Chicken Little, screaming, the sky is falling, or I can pause and say, okay, this happened before, 2007, 2008. I hit that and I survived. So I use that as my beacon of, okay, we can get through this. I don't know what the other side is going to look like, but I know we can get through it.
Right. And that's so important what you said. Hindsight is a really big practice that I used to take, and now I've learned foresight, but really just about being able to look back at your experiences and the things that we've been through and the resilience that you've had, and knowing that you have made it through. And the truth is, LaWanna, is that none of us know what's going to happen at any point, minute to minute. So we can't predict any of it anyway. And so it really is about, well, how can we equip ourselves with the balance and with the knowingness, right, that we are equipped with that. So that way, when things like pandemics, when things like the market, when things like anything that are outside of our control happen, we know how to plant our feet firmly in the ground and know that we're going to get through it.
Now, you mentioned hindsight, but then you said you've learned foresight. Can you explain that to our audience, and how were you able to learn the tools in order to have that sense of grounding as you're moving forward into the unknown, if you will?
Well, it came from a lot of missteps. It came from really when challenging situations would arise, that what I realized is that while the situations are challenging, what made it more challenging was the story that I created around it, was the stress and overwhelm that I fueled it with. And when I was able to step back, which took time because I would look back and go, oh, you've been through this already. So once I was able to start doing that, which it became a practice for me, that was like, when else have you faced something like this or something similar? How did you get through it? Becoming more self-aware, seeing what you can add to that situation to allow yourself to move through it. Now, when those challenges show up, I'm able to look at them like currently. I told you this before we went on air, like I pulled my back out a couple of weeks ago, and there were quite a few things that I've missed, both business and personal. And in the past, I would have, woe is me, poor me, all of that I think feels like a natural reaction because we're unhappy about something. But it were the stories that I told myself, this would never happen. Now I've given up all of this. I was able to look at it and go, all right, there's something bigger for you in this moment that you're supposed to learn. And one of those things was to slow down. So that's what I mean by foresight.
Yeah, and in business, there is, because I'm a strategist also, and I'm a certified in strategic foresight, and it's the same concept. It's the same principle. It's like, okay, let's assess all of these what ifs, but rather than focus on the negative, let's think about the possibilities.
And there's always possibilities. Like, we're negatively hardwired just in our brains to find the negative. And that's because, you know, in evolution, it really helped to keep us safe. Like, we were able to look out for danger, whether it was lions, cavemen, any of that, right? And so that's the truth. And so our brains still want to do that, but just as much as we create that negative story or look for that, we could do the same as exactly what you just said. Find the possibilities, find the positive in it. And, you know, as cliche as it might sound, but we really do find what we seek.
Yeah, that's a mouthful right there.
Yeah. And I always tell this story, and it's a personal story, but I'm just going to share it really quickly.
Sure.
You know, my fiance and I, we have, we're very different. Let's just say that. And I remember when we first met, we were both walking through the neighborhood, and I was just pointing out the beautiful trees and the sky. And I was like, oh, do you hear that, birds? And all he was doing was pointing out the litter that was on the sidewalk. Like, seriously, and like, why is this and that? And I remember thinking, him and I are living the exact same world, seeing the exact same thing, but from completely different perspectives. And it just made me realize that we do have the choice. And so, needless to say, a lot of the stuff that he sees is a little more negative than what I see. And I see more possibilities and he sees more limitations. And so that's what I mean really by we find what we seek.
I want to, if I may, just use that, your personal story, and translate it to business. So this is your fiance. So you found a way to have meaningful communication. Obviously, you have a committed relationship. What would you say from that lesson to someone who's seeking that business partnership, and you appear to be diametrically opposed in, like you said, how you view the world?
Well, really, I think it's always about seeking to understand first where somebody else is coming from, because again, he wasn't wrong. and I was right. I wasn't right and he was wrong. It's just coming from our own experience. So I think in any, whether honestly a business relationship or a personal relationship, if there is conflict there, you try to find mutual ground. You try to understand and listen where they're coming from. And I think when you start from that place, as opposed to I am right, see my way, you change the dynamic completely in business.
And that is what you said is so timely, because right now around the world, I mean, there's always been a push for diversity and inclusion, but now it's even broadening to equity and belonging. But the foundation in that is just what you said. It's number one, allowing people to be. It's understanding we all have our unique lived experiences that influence our perception and how we react and respond. And it's seeking to understand. And if we were able to, again, in the workplace and in our businesses, if we could get there, can you imagine the solutions that we can bring to our communities, to our nations?
Absolutely. Finding mutual ground in anything, from completely different political views, personal views, financial views, whatever that is. And I learned that a lot, honestly, during the last 2 years too, really seeing a lot of the tensions and, the social injustice, the uprising, the political division, all of that really just, and seeing people in my own family that had, and friends that had completely different viewpoints, that I could just write people off. I had to try to understand why it was that they felt that way. And more often than not, it was just coming from something that happened within them, a story that happened, the way that they were treated, or something that was just more important than something that I saw as more important. So it changes the conversation in everything.
I agree with you. I think that's what the pandemic did. It caused us to pause. And in that pausing, we were listening more than we ever did before. And just with you, I had family and friends, and I'm thinking, that's really what you think? That's really how you feel? But then when you understood the experience, it doesn't mean I agreed with them,
right?
But I got it. It's like, okay. I can give you a little grace, right?
Yeah, no, and it literally just happened yesterday, because there was a friend that I would call a friend now, that I saw on LinkedIn post something that I am completely opposed to. And I sat with it literally just yesterday for a moment, and I thought about all of the connection that we have, and the way that I respect him in so many ways. And I thought, all right, well, he's coming from his own unique experience and choosing to find the good, choosing to not judge him off of that particular aspect of his life. And that's all just coming from seeking to understand.
Yes. Now, I was reading on one of your posts. You gave, I think it was either 4 or 5 strategies. And the last one you were talking about, I want to say unconditional acceptance.
Self-compassion.
Radical self-compassion. That was your word choice.
Mm-hmm.
So let's walk through what does that mean? Because within, I'm also the founder of Celebrate You, Women Embracing Wellness, and one of our tenets is to really be able to love and embrace yourself. Because when you can do that, when you can look in the mirror and say, okay, good, bad, ugly, no matter where I am in this journey of life, I can still look at myself and celebrate and love me for the divine, amazing being that I am. Then I believe that that's when the magic in life happens, and you start to show up boldly in life. You're not this wallflower, right? You take ownership. So talk to me about what that means for you, and how did you get there within your own journey?
Whew. I get goosebumps when you say that, because self-compassion has literally been the transformation in my life, from having come from a background of trauma, from dealing with my own mental health condition, which is anxiety from the trauma, even some OCD, which I haven't even been diagnosed as, but I could see and recognize. And so much of that, I've been able to manage because of self-compassion. And what radical self-compassion for me is, it's a combination of compassion, which is really about offering and extending kindness and understanding to yourself. And also understanding that our struggle, that our challenges that we all go through it. So it's the sense of shared humanity in that, because when we feel less alone and less isolated, it becomes more comfortable for us to be able to show up in our skin, to be able to accept more of ourselves. And so often people feel like they are the only one going through something. And so self-compassion to me, like I said, looks like the kindness and understanding of myself and what I'm going through, and offering myself the love and acceptance that you would to someone that you love. If someone that you love came to you and shared with you something that they were going through, or they didn't feel, they feel like they failed at something and they're not good, and all of these self-defeating beliefs that they have about themselves, you wouldn't say, "You sure are right. What's wrong with you?" And beat that person up. So why, and I'm sure you've heard this, do we do that to ourselves? And so compassion really is about finding that place of love for yourself and sitting with yourself. And for me, I found that because I was tired. I got to a point of exhaustion where I was beating myself up for the ways that I was feeling and the things that I wasn't doing and the mistakes that I thought that I was making. And until I started to step outside of myself and realize, oh, of course you've made that decision, or of course you feel that way. I understand why you do. When I was able to start showing up for myself like that, then exactly as you said, I was able to show up in life more boldly, more bravely, more fully.
Yeah, I like that. One of the little stories I give, or examples, is that the worst thing is to go through life where your life represents a room, and you're walking into the room and you're tiptoeing in as though you don't even belong there.
Yeah. And it makes me sad. Like I'm very, because so many people do feel that way. So many people feel that they're either not wanted, they're not important enough, they're valuable, they have nothing to add to the conversation. And the most challenging part about that is that when you have those beliefs and then you continue to judge yourself based on those beliefs, that's how we create more depression. That's how more anxiety is raised. That is how, because we are judging ourselves for the way that we feel instead of offering and extending compassion for the way that you feel. And it's important to note, I just want to say that we're not denying that you feel that way. I didn't deny that I was feeling anxious. I didn't deny these feelings. I used to, and I tried to be happy all the time. And then I realized that that didn't work either. So it was really about the acceptance of the way that I was feeling.
And I like that you said that. And I just want to pause and just tell our listening audience that we are here with Shari Alyse, and we are talking about business excellence and its impact on mental health. And this show is for entertainment purposes only. It's not designed to treat or diagnose anything that you may be going through, but we realize that mental health is a real issue, and we're not minimizing anything. And if you find that you're in a place that you're crying out for help and need support, please reach out to NAMI.org or call the Suicide Prevention Hotline. The information is here below. And just so you're not alone, there are people who are on standby 24/7 to give you the support that you need. That's 800-273-8355. So how does it feel, Shari, to be in the space of radical acceptance, love, all the good, yummy of life?
Freeing, relieving, because when you already feel badly, like I said, and you judge yourself over that, it's like a self-imposed prison. And I just talked about that recently in my second TEDx talk, was about the walls that I built for myself based on my beliefs, based on the judgment of those beliefs. And so crossing to the other side, which I need to let people know that that doesn't mean that you're never challenged again. That doesn't mean that all your problems go away. But like I said earlier, it just means that you learn how to manage them better. You learn to recognize them more easily. So it feels like having a best friend with you all the time.
So now in better understanding you, understanding your triggers, accepting your past, it's just that, it's the past, and owning the now. You've been able to equip yourself with the tools to insulate yourself as best as possible. Life is going to happen. There's going to be ebbs and flows always. But going into that dark space again is less of a risk for you because of that self-empowerment and that amazing love that you have for yourself, right?
Absolutely. It's powerful what we can do for ourselves when we allow ourselves to be real with ourselves. Because for so long, I had shame around the ways that I thought, or the ways that I showed up, or the things that I did, or the things that happened to me. And because of that, I pushed those down and pushed those away. And so many people with mental health conditions do that because there is shame around it. And I want to say that, in the last couple of years with the pandemic, numbers for, I think the Harvard Business Review said that 67% of people, and this was last year, have reported symptoms of mental health conditions. And this might be controversial to some, but I would say that trauma, which I think we've all collectively experienced in some way, adds to mental health conditions. It's not like suddenly in 2 years, like everybody got a chemical imbalance. You know what I mean? Like, so it really is. And yes, of course, there are people that do that. So that have that. But it's just this idea of sitting with yourself and allowing yourself to feel what you feel. And when you do that, you create a light within you. So it doesn't have to be dark anymore.
And we all have a breaking point. We don't know what it is, what could trigger us. And like you said, this pandemic in our lifetime, it meant 2 years isolation. Some people never having human touch for months and months and months and months on end. We were not meant to be isolated beings. So one of the things I talk about, and I am so in agreement with you, Shari, is there is a second pandemic. And that second pandemic, it's not the virus, it's the impact the virus has had on our mental health. You look at our children, you look at the rising suicide rates. It's just, like you said, the anxiety, depression. There are so many things that are bubbling to the surface because we weren't meant to be caged, if you will. And that's really what it was. It was a self-imposed societal cage.
Isolation and loneliness is one of the biggest, I think, the pandemic really, for so many people. And like you said, and you touched on it, and it was powerful in the sense that it caused us to slow down. So we had that opportunity to slow down and to learn more. But for a lot of people too, that was so much harder, because then that meant that all of the busyness that we had and all of the distractions with everything stopped too. And that meant people had to sit with themselves and their emotions and their feelings, and stuff you haven't thought about in years or that you covered up, like suddenly rose to the surface. And if you don't and didn't have the tools to be able to manage that and sit with that, it's a reason why so many are in a place with anxiety, with depression, and with everything else that the pandemic created, or exacerbated.
Yeah, you're right. Shari, can you believe we are almost out of time?
That's what happens. You lose the flow. I mean, you go with the flow.
Right. Well, I'm going to take myself down. I want to give you some time to just share any lasting words that you want with the audience, and the importance of having that radical self-acceptance, self-love, and again, just however you're led to speak to the audience at this time. But I'd like to show, if I may.
Yes.
Take this one banner down. I want to show your video. Don't want anything in the way of this one. Here we go. Oops, it's still up there. It's being difficult.
That could entertain us.
There we go. There we go. It's all about going with the flow. That's what this is about.
Whatever will be.
Here we go.
I mean, I was too busy in my 20s and early 30s just trying to outrun my pain. I completely overlooked joy.
So you have this personal story of surviving abuse.
When I was 7 years old, I found myself on a witness stand, seated across from and speaking out against the man who had sexually abused me.
I transformed my life and my own trauma seriously just from the ways that I treated myself and having this compassion and love towards myself. It's about being conscious and allowing yourself and gifting yourself the permission to remove something that doesn't feel good.
That joy is experienced when we are fully connected to ourselves.
So it's not like you said, just slapping the joy on, but it's about being truthful to yourself.
And that is when the reconnection back to my whole self and my journey to joy began.
Oh, my joy magnet, you really have a way of lighting it up for all of us.
And as you travel down this path of self-connection on the yellow brick road to joy, you are going to have a chance to meet self-compassion and self-acceptance. And they'll be the ones that look like patience and kindness with yourself. Woo! Welcome to today!
When you use your own talent, your skills, and your abilities, things that you're good at, to then help someone, you're also helping build your self-esteem.
But I love churches, which is interesting because I'm Jewish. So who would have known, right?
You get to be an active participant in your joy. You get to choose it every single day.
Joy is found right there, right here, every time that you connect and come home to you.
So I think as business owners, as people in the workplace, and I think really anybody, whether even if it's a student, I think there's this pressure. I know there's this pressure to succeed, to accomplish things. And it doesn't help that we are exposed all the time through social media. It doesn't help that we are exposed all the time by who we highlight in the media as having all of these outward achievements. And if you're anything like me, what I found was that every time that I achieved something, there was then something else to achieve. As LaWanna said, the bar gets higher and higher all of the time. There's always something else. And what I have found in my journey of self-compassion was really about stopping, redefining what success looked like. Because once I achieved all of the outward things, once you get everything that you say that it is, that's going to make you happy, that's going to make you feel better, that's going to make you feel content, what you'll find when all of those achievements disappear or you're on to the next thing, that you're still in the same place, that you're still feeling like there's something else that you need. And so learning and practicing the art of presence, right? Sitting with yourself, connecting with your body, That was one of the biggest game changers for me, because we can always be stuck in our heads, right? We can always be thinking about all the things that we could have done better, how we could have perfected, how we shouldn't have made that mistake, how we made the wrong decision in this business decision. But when we can sit with ourselves and take those deep breaths and realize that you're doing the best that you can, and that no matter what the outer world says, what the achievement says, that it's never going to change your worth and who you are. And I think the biggest message that I want to get as we talk about mental health awareness is that your mental health is as much and should be as much a priority as we make our physical health, and that it is nothing to be ashamed of. And the fact that we know so many people are struggling with it right now, which means why we need to give it more and more attention. So I would say reach for support, share your truth. You're not alone in what you're going through. Realize that the process of getting to your goals, the process of life, the moment-to-moment journey of life, that's where the joy lies. It's not in the outcome. Because what happens if you never get to the outcome? It's about being connected to yourself, to this moment, to others, and ultimately your purpose.
I love that.
Thank you.
Beautifully stated. And I see your book back there. What does it say? Love Yourself Happy?
Yes, Love Yourself Happy, A Journey Back to You.
How can individuals get that book?
They can grab that on Amazon or on Barnes & Noble.
Okay, great.
And they also actually, there's, they can go to my website, ShariAlyse.com, and if they subscribe to my Joy Notes, they can get 2 free chapters to get a sample of it. And they can, I have consulting services on there, speaking, how to hire me as a speaker for your workplace, your corporation, your organization, wellness event. Really at the end of the day, LaWanna, which by the way, thank you again for having me on here, is really about people understanding that they're not alone and to be gentle and kind with themselves.
Yes, yes. Well, this has been an amazing pleasure. You're just so easy to speak to. I truly, truly have enjoyed this. And I just pray that those who are listening, those that are watching the replay or on demand, whether it's E360 TV or Facebook or YouTube, if you feel that you're struggling, reach out to Shari. Find out a little bit more about her story. I think you might be surprised, because sometimes we look at where people are today and we don't realize the journey that they've come through. So again, thank you so very, very much. I wish you well. Hope you're back here soon.
Thank you. It is. I'm taking care of myself.
And before we go, we're going to give our salute to the Ukraine, but I do want to encourage our audience to take care of you. Remember, you're first, family second, business third. It will all work itself out in the way it should. But find that radical self-love, that radical compassion that Shari Alyse has talked to us about. And it's going to be a process. It's not going to happen overnight, but it is possible. And always remember that when your vision intersects with opportunity, success is inevitable. Until next time, goodbye, everyone.
Shame.